Welcome back to Beyond the Box podcast. Frankie here from Digital Grading Co. Stacked and Packed, and we're also with Rich from Collectible Corner. Just before we go into a little bit about what we're going to talk about this evening, episode 1 went up, currently plus 100 views. I think it's gone down really well. Some great feedback. How do you think it went down, mate?
Mate, I love it. And genuinely, this is something that we've been talking about doing for a really long time. We've said we think the hobby needs it. I think, we've been talking about it for so long, and it was nice to finally think. We just said to each other, like, should we just do it? And we'll sit there and we can be two dopey blokes that get excited over shiny cardboard, talking to each other about it, and see if other people enjoy it as well. And you know what? It's been awesome. The feedback we've had has been amazing. So to everyone that has listened, we're both genuinely really grateful. The feedback's been fantastic, and we really encourage feedback. Constructive criticism is also welcome. It's how we make things better. You guys ultimately in this instance are the consumer and the one listening to what we're talking about. So whether it's positive, constructive, we love hearing back from you guys. But the fact the first one's been received so well is really driven us to make sure we keep producing these every single week, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, episode 2 is already up, and then this is going to be episode 3. So 3 episodes in, we're sticking to our side of the bargain, keeping regular content coming out, which is what it's all about. I think sometimes these things start up and you don't make the time, but beautiful thing about the hobby is there are always talking points. So we're never short of ideas or topics that we need to run through and break down throughout the week, and that's why we always start with the kind of weekly roundup of where the hobby is currently, the current state of the hobby, if you like. So I would say this is probably less of a change from episode 1 to episode 2. I felt like there was a real change in the state of the hobby between those two. It's been a little bit calmer, probably a little bit more settled. But yeah, I think tops really pushing the whole, the viral aspect of it, and really kind of getting a lot of influencers on board, which is clearly, brought a lot of attention and a lot of eyes to the hobby. I would actually say that Top's products are standing up post release stronger than maybe I've seen sets in a long time. We touched upon it in the last episode that we quite often see these release day hype sales on eBay where we see these huge. Prizm was a perfect
Yeah.
example. Mangas all doing 500 plus. Because I thought mangas were done so well this year, they almost didn't look manga. They almost looked a little bit more special than they had done previously. So commanded a pretty penny on release, but quickly came down from 500-ish to 200. But Tops has held its prices really well. So I will say that is a good thing for the hobby, that the aftermarket is holding its ground for a change. So other than that, not too much to report other than the topics that we're going to go through today. What about from your side, mate?
To be honest, mate, I'd echo what you said. It seemed a lot more. I think stability, yeah, stable has been exactly the way I'd describe it. I think that's a really good thing as well. They've got 4 new sets coming from Tops this week. They'll be out by the time you're listening to this. I know the ones that really interest me is we've got another Legends of Cricket coming out, and obviously this week we get UCC Sapphire. So the fact that the market's had that element of stability, I think the market's as strong as it has been in a very long time. I'd almost argue the market's probably at its strongest point post COVID that we've seen in a very long time. And it's now coming out as what is ultimately probably Topps' flagship set. Probably this in Museum, Inception. The 3 of them are probably insert whichever order you'd like. But yeah, so there's exciting sets coming out. I think we've got a new basketball and a new baseball this week as well. Don't quote me on it, I'm not expertise on those, but 4 new sets dropping this week, which should be quite good, and ones that I'm looking forward to. So we'll probably be speaking a lot more on those on the next episode, because they'd have been out and would have been able to see them a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's been a good week.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a bit of a checklist roundup as well. Maybe we'll pull up
Sounds good.
some checklists and have a run through and see where things are. Cricket set. Big shout out, Liam Redding, Redders Football Cards, the man for cricket in the UK. I don't know if anyone else actually buys it other than our Liam. It seems like he buys every single box of cricket and then sells them back to himself because there's no one to sell them to. But that's probably me just having a little wind up of him there. But yeah, Redders does love his cricket, so he'll be looking forward to that one.
I mean, I want the
Um,
Flintoff autos. I'm not going to lie. The Flintoff autos in this checklist. There's something about me that kind of really wants to get my hands on a decent Freddie. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, nice. Well, mate, I'm looking back, remember him very fondly. I mean, I'm not the biggest cricket guy. Always enjoy the Ashes, whether it be listening to centre force radio when I'm working or tuning into Sky Sports News every day. It kind of it's a nice change when the Ashes are on, something different to listen to, and something that you can sort of immerse yourself into for the full week. So no, I enjoy it when the Ashes cricket is around, and obviously Flintoff was the governor at one point in Ashes cricket, and yeah, I've always got very good memories of that. So yeah, nice flashback, a bit of nostalgia, but very shame what happened to him, really, mate, weren't it? It was
It is
quite
tragic,
a
and it's really good seeing him up and about again and out of the house, and hopefully starting to grow back and regaining his confidence because the guy's a national hero. He's a national hero, national icon. We all love him. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't enjoy seeing him on telly. He was always my favourite to watch on Top Gear. He's always fantastic on panel shows like A League of Their Own. He's a household name, and I for one really hope he can find it within himself to get back to where he was before because yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah, huge character. Right. Last week, you said to me afterwards, this week needs to be full of positivity. We need to lift things up again and, you know, have a real good feel good factor. So we're going to get out the way, first of all, the slightly iffy subject of the fake Messi auto saga. We did touch upon it last week.
We did.
I've just seen one on Instagram, someone that pulled one today in a break. God, dear. Just it's that one. There's another card that's floating around out there, and people who keep their eye on the card market will know of this one, where obviously where the talking point is how the loop is done at the beginning of the auto.
Yeah,
That's the first part of whether this is the same person doing the autograph or not, and I think a big part of why everyone believes that it's two different people. But there's one where it's almost done twice. It's a red. It might be a Merlin Messi, and they try the loop. They sort of get it wrong. They go over it again, and how that ended up on a sticker and on a card, I have no idea. Probably one of the worst examples that I've ever seen. I've just seen another one, and you just put your hands in your head and think, regardless of whether there is truth behind the allegations, I know the stickers are there's value in every sticker that they put on, but why? Why you pull in what is probably the most sought after card in the hobby currently is
yeah.
Messi autos, and you put something on where there's a mistake on the sticker. I, yeah, I mean, if you're short of a few quid, and you're a small business and a mistake happens, if you've got some flyers done and they come and they're a bit frayed at the edges or something, you kind of run with it. When you're as big as Tops, is it really necessary that you've got to be putting these stickers on? So tell me about these dodgy stickers and also your take on whether or not there is truth behind the madness.
It's so hard at the moment, isn't it? Because you've hit the nail on the head. They are the creme de la creme of cards. I think there's probably an argument that in this hobby, the four biggest names that you can have an autograph for in your PC: Maradona, Pele, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi. I think if you wanted to have your GOATs collection, those are the four that you would go for. You might have your own personal favourites. I'd put Fellaini on the same shelf. Other people would have, wrong opinions and not have him there. That's fine. But, you can very, very easily fall into a trap currently of grabbing one of these ones that's a bit skeptical, especially if you are really desperate to add that card. You've been in this hobby a while and you think, I want that one card that everyone's going to look at and go, wow. You get a Messi autograph and this one's going cheap. Oh, I've got to steal. And I just hate the idea that anyone that's not really, really clued up in the hobby at the moment can make that mistake. Now, obviously, we don't know for a fact. It is allegedly, it is rumor and suspicion. I think a lot of us that have been in this game a long time have our opinions and views. And sometimes that's enough. Just that I've got that bit of doubt in the back of my mind. I couldn't have one of those cards in my collection. I'd have to have one of the old school ones. Whether it's his old autograph or a different autograph, we don't know. But I just couldn't touch them. And it's such a shame because, it's going to be one of those eras where we've seen players change their autograph, all right? People will know I've got a big Garnacho collection. When he was a lot younger, he had a very, very different autograph to the one we see every day today. I've actually got a great example to hand. We'll have a look here. This was Garnacho's younger autograph. Really tight and compact. And I think what you see nowadays is a much longer with that beautiful 7 coming back across through it. Very different. We've seen Lamine Yamal. It was very tight. And nowadays, it almost seems to be like an L and then a 7 coming the other way. It's expanded. Very, very similar to what's happened with Garnacho's younger one. I get they can change. You don't tend to find someone in their late 30s that's been doing it for so long, all of a sudden changing up their autograph. I'm sure this is, mate, you're going to be a superstar. Let's make it a little bit flashy. And by the way, you're going to be doing it 100 times a day. So let's simplify it a little bit. That's probably what's happened with Yamal, Garnacho, stuff like that. I don't think you change your auto that way, at this stage of your career, at that stage of your life. The very obvious, the pronunciations on the Leo, it's very different compared to normal. The loop is very obviously thing. And it's a shame because, like we said, it's one of the biggest chase cards in the whole hobby. And whether it's true or not, it's just put that element of doubt over it. And, are we going to see a massive divide in prices on Messi autos? Probably. Why is someone going to go, why is that 101 worth more than that 101? Well, I don't know. It's a real interesting talking point on the hobby. I would love for them to come out just with some clarity. On the back of the cards where it states it was all signed by an independent witness and stuff like that. Okay, perfect, cool. So you should know for a fact that this was in fact done by him. Let's release a statement. I'm a little bit surprised why Tops and Fanatics have allowed there to be the controversy. They should just jump on it straight away. I'd have thought
Yeah.
we'd had an announcement.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And it makes you wonder what's gone on because, like you say, they've got that text on the back of the card, but how truthful? If you've got the biggest sports star in the world who says, I'm not available, but send them to me and I'll get them done. To have Messi autos in your product is so important. I think you bend the rules, and then you don't expect for somebody else to be sitting there signing them. But so I think with all of these things, so people may know, but once upon a time I had a memorabilia company for a short period of time. It didn't last too long because the person we was doing it with and we was doing it for, it was more of a charity project than it was an actual business. But we always took photographic evidence of every single one of our items that were being signed. This runs a lot deeper. This isn't just about tops. This is sports memorabilia in general and autographs, the authenticity of them. I went and had a look at Messi autos after we discussed the fake Messi autos last time. And I mean, the shirts that I saw and some of the signatures I saw on some of the shirts was embarrassing. A certificate, I could print one off, go on, I could go on Paint right now and draft up a little certificate if I wanted to and churn one out and say, oh, I'm an authentic. And this is the problem when there's so much money involved, that's the danger. People always, are tempted to do things that, are not quite right. And I thought to myself, do you know what? For me, it's always been the loop. And I know there's the accents, and I know, but the loop is such a prominent part. It's the first thing he does when he signs anything is that loop. It's the first action that he does when he does his signature. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go out and see if there's any videos of Messi signing products. And actually, there's plenty out there. There's plenty. You can go onto YouTube, you can look for Lionel Messi signing in person, or you can look at whatever. It's so consistent every time. It's bang on. And you look at it and you just think, I just can't, like we say, we don't know. And it's very, very difficult to, have 100%. Well, there is no one knows for sure. Because like I said to you, I've sat here and I've just been doing it again now. I can do exactly the Messi loop, and then I can suddenly do it again and put that sort of point at the top of it, that sort of almost triangular shape, just by accident. So it makes you think, well, there is a chance that if he's in a rush or if he's at a different angle or whatever. But these shirts are being held up to him all over the shop. And every time, bang, bang, bang. They're all so consistent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There are some players whose autographs are not consistent, and it's hard the way they do it for it not to be consistent. His ain't like that. So, if this is me with my memorabilia company and somebody walks in with that pointy part of the Messi, the Leo looking different and the accent, I would be not authenticating it. It's a no from me. I wouldn't be buying it. I wouldn't be selling it, and I wouldn't be authenticating it. So that's just my take on it. Yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, it's a little bit of a shame. Like I say, it's just a. Hopefully, we find out. Hopefully we find out, and if it is wrong, I hope Tops address it well. I hope they go, do you know what? Anyone that's got one of these ones, send it back to us. We'll replace it. No qualms, no issues. Bang. Whether they know, but what I think they need to do is, even if it's any doubt, we think it's good, but you know what? We'll do it for you anyway. They've got to have thousands of this guy's sticker. They can use a few of them just to fix anyone. Let us reprint you another Marks of Excellence. Let us just do something like this just to put that peace of mind at rest. Because, like I said, if it was a random left back from Ipswich, no one would have noticed. Maybe one or two of the true die-hard fans would have maybe picked up on it, but it never would have developed into a story. The problem is it's the flagship card of the product. And that's where I think it's a little bit disappointing for us as collectors, and I think that's why it's one of the things that you just kind of feel you need to address and give it the time in the conversation to really drill down and discuss it.
Yeah, the only thing that catches me out with this, right? And there's one thing that maybe a saving grace for them. But again, you just don't know. If you look at all of his on cards, again, post 2000, very consistent. I don't think I've seen one on card that looks remotely like the ones that are being regarded as potentially iffy. Okay, but prior to that, Eminence, there's examples of it. So if it's an Eminence on card, you'd be so shocked if that hadn't been done in person. That's not a sticker. It's on card. It's a big product. You'd be very, very surprised. But again, you just don't know. But that's the one thing that's catching me on it, and the one thing that makes me doubt the whole story and the whole, what's being said at the moment is those Eminence cards that are on card back in, I think it was 2017, 2018. Yeah, 2017, 2018. But again, I'm looking at one of the links here. And this is a post, right? This goes back to 2019. I'm on Blowout Cards. This goes back to 2019. So, we can sit here and we can, say tops this, tops that, because that's where we're seeing examples of it at the moment. But this is Panini eminence.
Panini, I was about to say that's
Um,
Panini Eminence. That's a whole nother, yeah.
and this was literally in August 2019. About there's a story going around other venues about Messi having his brother sign cards for him. So this isn't a new thing. If anyone thinks this is
Wow.
like now, this is not a now thing. This has been around for a long, long time, and it goes right back. And there's plenty of forums out there. There's plenty of talk around it. So this, like I say, this runs a lot deeper. And this person here says maybe a few future buyers may shift from eminence to flawless, because yeah, apparently even these eminence ones were potentially done by his brother. So yeah,
Wow.
this isn't a new thing, mate. This has been around for a long time, and it might surprise people that this has been going on a lot longer than the last few months.
That's crazy. I had absolutely no idea about the Panini and Eminence one, so that's interesting for me. But then again, the exact same story is about this. Yeah, that's weird. It's interesting.
Certainly is. Anyway, let's move on. I mean, there's some positives in this. This isn't going to be a positive or negative topic, I don't think, but I think it's one that everyone's going to be fairly keen on hearing where we are with this now, because again, like the hobby changes, this changes quite a lot as well, and something that I've got personal experience over, and that is grading
Cool.
within the hobby right now. So yeah, we all know that PSA, if you want an increased value of your card, is the way to go. If you think back prior to sort of lockdown era, 2 million card backlog, struggling to keep up with things. Times to get your cards back went over a year, was so slow, almost made it impossible. And then PSA shut their submissions down and said, we're not taking any more until we catch this up. So, been here before. Obviously, the hobby booms, more people grading cards than ever. Should be a good thing. Sounds like a positive thing. Um, Actually, the times where people are grading less cards seems to be where the value really sits, because there's less protected from that particular time period, than when people are grading pretty much everything. And I've heard a few people recently say that we're probably in a worse place right now in the hobby than the junk wax era, with regards to basically, PSA value on cards, how many types of cards are graded, lots of base cards being graded again, a lot of real junk cards, to be perfectly honest. So, yeah, well, where are you with grading at the moment, and how are you sort of sitting with PSA right now?
It's a topic that I find fascinating. Genuinely, I do. When I got into the sports card remit, especially a lot deeper, it was around lockdown, and I think a lot of people kind of did. When I really kicked onto it in like 21, 22, a PSA 10 was 4x raw value. That was pretty standard, 3.5, 4x. If you had a card at £100 in a PSA 10, that was 350, £400. That wasn't even negotiable, really. That was pretty comfortable. A PSA 9, you could probably see 80% over. I don't think it was unheard of to see a PSA 9 of that £100 card doing 180, maybe even 200 quid. And, PSA 8 was pretty much card plus grading. You'd maybe get 120, 125 for that card because they'd gone through the weight of encapsulating an X, Y, and Z. And then PSA 7s and below for modern cards were considered, base and raw and stuff like that. If you've got vintage cards, it's a whole nother ball game for a whole nother conversation. But along the time, we've lost that. Like, I've got people nowadays telling me that PSA 9s are worth less than base. PSA 9s are, maybe 20% over. And I'm seeing people getting like double for PSA. Double for PSA 10 seems to be the new consistent. That £100 card in a PSA 10 is now like 180, 200 quid. That blows my mind. Now, Whether that's because saturation and the amount of cards that are being graded, I just looked it up now while Frankie was talking. PSA on average are grading 370,000 cards a week. They're doing like 1.5 million cards a month. That is incomprehensible to me. Like the amount that they're churning out, 50,000 a day. That is a crazy, crazy number. Now, maybe that's the reason the saturation. Now, the counterpoint is that, well, in sports card we've got numbered cards, so there's actually can't saturate it too much. Maybe for the TCG world, that would be the root cause. But for us, it's a 25. There's only ever going to be 25 of them. The pop count's only ever going to be what it is, but it still doesn't seem to have that big impact. And I wonder where we've got lost. And I don't know why that's happened. I don't think people respect grading as much. I think because grading's become so accessible, be it with middlemen who are able to help getting cards to PSA and the quality of UK grading companies, I genuinely believe improving massively and being affordable. Maybe that's just then actually taken away from the value of grading cards because people think it's easier to do now. I don't know, but it's just a shame. And I think PSA have noticed this. I think what PSA have done is that's one of the reasons these new 10 criterias have really tightened up. And I think it's to try and make that PSA 10 hard to achieve again. Make it really actually desirable. Like, holy crap, this got a 10. Try and give you that, oh my God, it's a 10 feeling, which became quite standard. And, maybe that will start making people see 9s and go, hey, that's not bad. And and maybe that it's PSA's way of where they have such a monopoly, trying to maneuver the market back into the more premium aspects of 10s, 9s, and 8s being more readily accepted again. Because I had a sub recently where it was just so 8 heavy, it was unbelievable. And I'd like to think I've got quite a good eye. I've been doing this long enough. I knew a couple of them wouldn't gem, but it was interesting. So I think it's quite interesting in the fact that I don't know where it lies. Is PSA's monopoly just dangerous? Because I was looking into it. Beckett do 8,000 a week as opposed to 370,000. And that is a whole nother ballgame. I mean, do PSA need to introduce, a different version of 10 like Beckett do with that black label? Black labels 10x on a raw value easily. Maybe the easiest way PSA do is introduce something like that. But it's a topic that I find really interesting just because I've lived it, experienced it, I've seen the dip, and I haven't never quite been able to get out why. So your opinions as why in the chat would be amazing. And Frankie, anything you've got on it, mate, as someone that eats, sleeps, and breathes this world, would be really interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, from from my perspective, I blame just how the UK is in general right now, and I blame a lot of how the hobby is being used, a lot of how people are introduced to the hobby.
Okay.
So before we had some really, it was quite a niche place to be. You had some people who were really sort of, I don't know, seen as the OGs of the hobby, if you like, and people listened. And I'd love. Do you know what I'd really like to hear? If anyone listens to this and are from America, because from our side, it's very difficult to have an opinion. But I've always felt like American collectors have it very different to the UK. And there's always seemed to be more respect for PSA 9s in America, more respect for PSA 8s. One of the next topics we're going to talk about in a minute, more respect for certain types of cards as well in certain grades. And it feels like this is a purely unique to the UK problem, not a hobby as a whole problem. And I feel like when people are getting introduced to the hobby via TikTok, whether it be whatnot, wherever it may be, or big influencers who are only interested in about money, gambling, making money from the hobby, um, ego. It's got to be a 10. You've got to have a 10. All of that, rather than it being about what sports card collecting was all about, which was collecting full sets, filling binders, going and getting a rainbow of something. Actually, what collecting is all about, not all, can I get a card and make a quick few pennies off of it? That to me is why we are where we are, is because we're so driven by I need to make money. I want to make an investment. I want to earn a profit on my card. That's why PSA 9s are so disregarded, because everybody knows that the 9 doesn't add value, and it should. This is the problem. It should. It's got such a disrespect in the UK, and it's quite horrible, really. Look, there is something to be said for like OCD, looking at something and it not being perfect. Um, and I saw someone recently who collected, what do they call it? Where you get the player's name in the card. What type of card is that?
Oh, Spellbound.
Made Spellbound. Yes, thank you. So somebody had completed I think it was Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards, and it was Edwards Spellbound, and it was all tens. Now, if you've got that and one of those letters is a 9, that would throw me off.
Different story. Yeah,
It'd
yeah.
drive me insane. So at that point, I would understand that someone needs the 10 and not the 9. I get it. But at the end of the day, a 9 is still a very near perfect card.
It says it. It's
Um,
mint.
it's mint, yeah. It's
It's
mint.
mint. It's not. It's not.
This is it.
This is washed. It's still mint.
Yeah, no, that's it. And the fact it's now protected and it's encapsulated, that should mean something, but it doesn't. And it is frustrating. You are so right with how people, and this is the thing as well, because cards come out into the market, or people say somebody goes to a card show, they go to a card show, get all their card, they do a bit of buying, they raid the dollar bins, they go and try and get a few deals, they do a bit of bulk raw buying, they ship it off to PSA, right, hoping I'm getting some tens that'll make me money. Cards come back, right, there's a 10, there's a 10, there's a 10. Okay, that's made me money. The rest, I ain't that too bothered about. Stick them on eBay, starting at 99p or whatever, and let them go for whatever they go for. That's just like a one-way habit to just completely obliterate a market anyway. Why someone wouldn't get 9s and put them up for what they're actually worth and be prepared to sit on them. But again, there's such this in and out culture. No one's buying to sit on them and collect and actually, and then things don't come up as often, and then there's not as many comps around, and then there's not as many this and that. And that is the other thing. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to do a show on its own, that if somebody doesn't really care about their PSA 9, or is desperate to have a few quid and is willing to sell a PSA 10 card cheap, if that creates a comp, that shouldn't mean that that's now the market price for that card. It just meant they were so happy to offload it at that point, whether or not they're chasing another card or a growl card and they're looking to raise funds, or whether they've overspent and need to recoup some of their money. Again, it's such a habit that we've got in the UK that we get cards in. We know it as breakers. How many times do you see someone hitting one of your breaks, and within the hour, that card is posted on a marketplace on Facebook trying to sell that card? They ain't even got it in their hands yet, but it's trying to be sold. So it's such an in and out culture, and it causes a race to the bottom. That's what it does. It causes a race to the bottom, and it obliterates pricing. So we've just got to get a bit more respect for what we have, get a bit more collector based. If cards stayed with people longer, I think the PSA value starts to return. I think we've made our own bed. We've treated the PSA 10s with such disregard that PSA have gone, well, we're going to make them rare as rocking horse, whatever. And that's how we're going to increase our market value on him again, and that's all our own doing and all our own fault.
No, I think that's a really fair point, and I think you said, you're. I think it's a really good idea. We'll do an entire show around comping, and someone has requested it, and it's one of the things we do say is if you want topics for us to talk about, questions to ask about, or topics to talk about, please let us know because we'd love to do it. And someone said to us like, "Can we talk about comping?" I'd love to. I think it's going to be such an interesting conversation, and Frankie's hit the nail on the head. Just because someone's tire went flat that morning and they needed all of a sudden to go to Quick Fit and they've found out it's 120 quid for a run flat, but you need two of them, so they're now got 250 quid at the end of the month. They're gonna sell their card worth £350. I need 250 quick sale. It's not a £250 card now,
Yeah.
but that comp says it is, and it's where we can talk about the hobby and the market. So I think that's going to be a great episode when we talk about that and
It needs a
really.
full episode.
We could literally, yeah, it really
It's an
does. It
episode
really
in
does.
itself. That is a 45-minute to an hour conversation. The variables that are involved in comping cards and how many different factors that are involved. It's going to be such an interesting show. And maybe we try and squeeze it into half an hour. That probably makes more sense as a little standalone separate episode. But yeah, it's something that needs to be discussed. I mean, another great example of that, and PSA and so on, is my Douay card. So we've got Douay there, number to 5 in a PSA 9. We've literally just seen on Card Ladder, and again, when we talk about how comping cards and so on, Card Ladder is always my go-to. But obviously, there are other tools out there, 130 point, that people use, and that's additional talking points. But Douay obviously went crazy. So this card a month ago is a £200 card. That's what it is,
Yeah.
200 quid. Then he wins the Champions League. With the sales that happened after that Champions League win, I asked a few people who were very credible in the hobby what I could ask for this card, and they said £3,000 to £4,000 for that card. So overnight, it goes from 200 to that. But there were no actual physical sales of it at that point in time. So it was kind of like guesswork. Then all of a sudden, the sales start to come in. There was one for $3,400. There was one for $3,000. So all of a sudden now you can start to say, yeah, that is what it's actually worth. Then today there was a sale, $3,250, but in an SGC 10. Now we get into other talking points. SGC 10 versus PSA 9. What one do you prefer? What one do you want? It just opens so many different topics of conversation.
Maybe it
Um,
needs 2 episodes.
well, that's maybe it does, maybe it does, but it's absolutely mad. I put this on eBay for £3,000. I had an offer that was automatically rejected via eBay for £1,700. I then lowered this to 2,000 because it hadn't been sold. Had an offer of £800. It's wild. At the end of the day, something is only worth what I'm willing to sell it for and what they're willing to pay for it. And that's what makes up a price. And we can sit here and say, no, that SGC 10 sold for $3,250. This card is worth $3,250. That's what I want to, that's what I'm valuing it at. Well, unless someone comes and puts $3,250 on the table in front of you, unfortunately, that isn't what it's worth. But for me sitting here now, my decision on this is, do I want to take 800 quid for it right now, which is still £600 more than it was worth a month ago, or do I hold out? And if I sell this card for $800 right now, does it mean that the person who paid 3,250, does it mean their card is now worth 800? These are the issues that we've got. It's mad. It's wild. We could go on about it all day, but for me, ultimately, PSA is the be all and end all in the hobby. It's just how it is. There's nothing we can do about it, and I don't think that's going to change. I like Beckett, but I do feel like their slabs damage faster than PSA slabs. They
I
just
see
seem
that.
to tarnish a little bit more. They feel more robust because they're chunkier, they're a bit bigger, and but for me, best slab I've ever held in my hand is HGA, and
I'm
people will
exactly
find
where you're
that
going
quite
with that. Yeah.
surprising. But I just think they feel the most solid, the most robust. I think they mark the least, most scratch resistant. I really like HGA slabs. SGC have their place when it's. I used to have that, and I can't believe I sold it. I'm gutted I sold it. No, no, biggest regrets. I had the Pedri in his tuxedo autograph,
Oh, in a
and obviously
tuxedo slab.
they call SGC tuxedos. He's in the tuxedo. It was just that was a collector's card. I should never have let that go. I didn't listen to my own advice there. Um, CGC, SGC, not really for me. I'm not too keen. Look, I'm impressed with Tag. I think the way Tag do their labels and the way it's etched in, I think is very clean. I quite like their technology. It's okay. It's okay. Um, but you know, unless I still don't see anyone that's anywhere near, not even knocking PSA off their perch, but just putting a dent in PSA. It still don't
Yes.
exist. Many have tried, and many have failed.
Well, SGC
And
were doing very, very well. And what did PSA go and do?
well, yeah,
They bought
exactly
them.
that. Yeah, that's exactly right. So, anyone who starts knocking on the door, but I'm not sure SGC. Look, there was obviously doing enough and taking enough market share that, like you say, PSL felt like that move was necessary. But again, I hold a PSA slab and I hold an SGC slab, and I choose PSA slab all day long. So, yeah, I
SGC.
mean that. Huh?
I prefer SGC.
Do ya?
I do. Do you know what's really weird? I like it. I think they look good on the stand. I like the border. It frames the, that black surround. It
Yeah.
I feel a lot of the time it makes your card pop. I think kabooms in an SGC look incredible. Just that nice
Mm.
black border with that beautiful like pop in design. I like the tuxedo slab, the white label, black slab. I think they stack nicely. I think they feel solid. But this is where I'm always slightly controversial. I'm never usually on the norm with this kind of thing, but I do 1,000% agree with you with HGA. I think they're beautiful. I like SGC. But yeah, I don't know. There's something about SGC. I really like them.
Yeah, and that's it. All starts to boil down to: do you want something that's protected and is your PC, and it's something that you're just wanting a nice frame around it and everything else, or do you want maximum value for your card? Maximum value is PSA. If it's whatever, it's a PC item. I don't want to sit and wait for PSA. The most annoying thing for me was, and I think this could have been the game changer. The game changer could have been BGS Beckett open European locations. All of a sudden, more accessible to the UK, where things are really kicking on, than sending your stuff off to PSA in the USA. And because of Brexit, we're not allowed to send our cards to the BGS European hubs. I mean, how unlucky could you get that they make this move to bring grading to our doorstep, and because of the issues of importation of values of things being increased and so on, that they don't take submissions from the UK? It is so frustrating. That could have been the game changer for us. And you may have seen, not across the whole hobby, but you just might have seen Beckett make a real move in the UK. We might have seen Beckett, the value of Beckett slabs in the UK, if they're everywhere at card shows, and all of a sudden we can, ship to them and have our cards back within a few weeks. It just could have been so big.
I mean, I think even today, if you level up a Beckett 10 versus a PSA 10, historically, Beckett always does more. And the
Mm.
big thing is the Beckett is backed up with the subgrades. It backs it up, and that's the big thing for me. You can see it. You can back it up every single time, and that is strong. And then obviously where they've got that black label element, you get a go on.
Yeah, my head's now going to there must be a way round this Beckett situation. But if there had been, someone would have worked it out by now. You would have seen someone rocking up to card shows with just a table full of Beckett slabs, and I would have gone over and said, "What do you know that I don't?" and tried to extract it from them. But um, you would think there's always a way around these things, but
We'll work it
I
out,
don't
mate.
know.
Me and
If
you.
anybody does know, comments below. That would be wonderful. So yeah, what's your sort of take? If you was to rank your top three grading companies to grade with, depending on all those factors, if you're gonna potentially recommend this one, if they went bust tomorrow, who'd you go with? If they went bust, who'd you go with?
It's tricky for me. I don't like PSA. And that's personal, and I get it. But who do I send my cards off to? PSA, because you've got no option. If you want to, because the way the market views certain things, to maximize the value out of your card, if you are grading to sell, it's PSA. Do I want a label that looks like a Tesco Basics label in my personal collection? No. I think that white and red, I think it looks so basic. It's so wordy, and it's just got so much unnecessary text. I'm not a fan of them for my personal collection. So it's two ways of viewing it. If the number one answer has to be PSA because they are the market leaders and the submission reflects it. If I was just sending my own cards off, I love HGA, SGC, and Beckett. It'd probably be how I would do it for my own personal cards. HGA because I love custom labels, SGC because I quite like the tucks, and Beckett still has that premium element. I like the gold when you get in the 9.5s and the 10s. I love that shot of a black label. A really good mate of mine recently just showed me he had a Rafinha to 10 in a black label. And just on the shelf, it just looks fantastic. There's just that black and gold. It looks incredible. And, that's, yeah, no, that for me really, really holds Beckett up. So for me, if it was those ones, it would be HGA, SGC, and Beckett. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a big HGA fan. I'd look at it. Say they were on my doorstep, and take PSA out the equation, just
Well,
do
yeah,
that,
let's just,
and
yeah.
then you've got in the UK, you've got every other grading choice, and they will return their cards to you at the same time, all within a month. HGA is my favourite slab. That's where I go. I would probably put Beckett above SGC just because, like you say, the credibility, the history. You just see, I don't know. I do like Beckett. And then would I go SGC? That's the big question. Would I go SGC? Yeah,
It's SGC or tag, probably, isn't it?
do you know what? I was gonna give them a shot, but they're not there yet. I need to see more. I
That's
don't think they're
they're
far
fourth.
away.
I think they're fourth. I think I got them
Yeah,
fourth.
no, I agree with that. Right then, mate. Let's move on to this week. We're going to do the most underappreciated card type in the hobby, and then next week we're going to do the most undervalued players.
Okay.
I've been saying it for a long time. Well, hey, we've got to zoom out on my old camera there. Do you see that? That was quite incredible, weren't it? Can't get it to zoom back in now. Um, so I've been saying it for a long time. I didn't realise. I think we've both got a similar opinion on this. Um, but I'll let you take it away, and then I'll say my point of view. What
Yeah.
is your most underappreciated card type?
I think, yeah, I think this is really interesting because I think everyone's going to have different ones. Now, we all have our favourites. Now, this certainly isn't my favourite, I am an absolute sucker for a kaboom. I love a kaboom. You know, we've all got our favorite card types, stained glass, peacocks. You know, some of them just look good. But there's some out there that I just think people disregard them because they're not pretty. They're not flashy. They don't stand out on a shelf. They don't jump out at you in a binder. And I really think the most underrated card in the entire hobby is a silver rated rookie optic. There's just something about it. The rated rookie element, I think, looks so much better than an RC symbol. The silver element of it brings it beyond that base. It adds that small level of rarity, that slight level of short print, which means it's not generic, it's not standard, it's not base. And then just that optic, they just look so smart. And I think, I'll give you an example. Lamine Yamal, we know he's had a big high price hike at the moment. As of today, it's just a silver rated rookie optic Yamal, about £35 for what some people would look at and just disregard because it's a silver card. We think unless there's color on the card and it's green to 99 or blue to 49, it's worthless. They're doing about 30 quid each. In a 10, they're up about 150, £180, which completely contradicts my argument of 2x earlier, but it's an anomaly, you know what I mean? It's very much an anomaly. Big money for a silver rated rookie optic right now. And I think it's just, and it's a word that I think Frankie uses a lot, and it's spot on. It's timeless. It's going to look good now, and it will look good in 30 years' time, because it's always just going to be a clean, smart looking card. And, I've looked back at a few of them now, and I've started seeing other players with these really nice rated rookie optics, and I'm like, I might start, I've been saying for a little while I want a new PC. I might just start picking some up. Just really smart looking, high grades. Because and that's it. There's a very simple answer for me. Anyone ever says that question, it's very easy. Silver rated rookie optic.
Yeah, love it. I've always said I take it more generic than that. I go to just any silver rookie prism, rookie refractor from Tops. Like American sports prove that the test of time on these cards.
Yeah.
You've got a QB rookie in a silver or refractor in a 10. That is the market out there. That is the most played around market is QBs, rookies from other American sports in silver prisms or refractors in PSA 10s. Like that is the game. They are the most liquid, most traded, most sold, most purchased cards that you find in America. It's the core of the market. Here they get chucked in a drawer. And I've said it so many times, you're all mad. Go and have a look at what Mbappe rookies do in silvers and refractors.
Yeah.
Like it's mad how and the biggest problem is that they're called silver prisms when they're not even silver.
No.
That they're called refractors. If they call them, because let's be honest, there isn't too much difference. I mean, there will be a difference in the short print, but there's not too much difference between an SP or an image variation or whatever. But because it's an image variation, that's got to be good. In a PSA 10, we'll give you 150 quid for that. Why didn't they just call them rainbow something, or why didn't they just name them something a little bit more exciting than
Rainbow
just a
refractor.
refractor?
I'll do.
Anything, and it would have made the difference. It's just because they seem boring, and they're not boring. They are the short print version of the base card. And if you get a perfect grade in that, well, the test of time tells you that if you get a player who really kicks on and goes and becomes a legend in the sport, they will always be valuable. And yet they are always just chucked in a drawer, not protected, most of them not even sleeved, and no one really gives a damn about them, which is crazy to me. They stand the test of time. The design is never going to go out of fashion. there's no risk of who wants, say, if you're an Everton fan, who wants a red numbered Everton card that's in the
Anything.
team
Yeah, of
colours
course
of
you don't.
Liverpool. It just doesn't make any sense. So they are just perfect. There's no reasons not to love them. Yeah, I've always been a huge shoes fan, and I couldn't agree more. Again, it's where we're behind on the hobby compared to America. Americans know that they are fantastic cards. They are a short print. You know, get a perfect grade, and if that player goes and does something in the future, it's going to be it's going to have value.
Absolutely, mate. No, I think you've absolutely nailed it on the head. And I think that comparison, I was looking not too long ago, and I was watching a stream in America, and they were doing repacks, and out of it came a PSA 10 Patrick Mahomes rated rookie silver optic. I was like, I mean, nice. I mean, because I appreciate rated rookie optics. I'm like, that is nice. It's the most talked about player in the league at the moment. Fantastic. Looked up the comps. The comparisons, the kind of money you can get PSA 10 to 10 Cristiano Ronaldo autos. You're spending thousands on an equivalency for the kind of stuff we'd be interested in. And that's just a silver. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable the love that those kind of things get. And I do hope that the UK market catches up with that a little bit. I think we put too much pressure on needing the really low numbered stuff. And maybe that's because our market is smaller. And in
it is.
America, where there's 100 times the collectors, it makes those to 25 or less, 100 times less achievable and attainable.
Yeah,
I fully respect that could be the case. But it doesn't mean that we should be disregarding, which is what we do at the moment, just completely disregarded. And it's something that I've, in the back of my head, I've been kind of just going to hold that one. I like that. And, hopefully,
any I get. If I get a rookie silver, I've got a box for rookie silvers. They all go in. You've just told me about Yamal now. I must have a box somewhere full of Yamal silvers. So I'm going to go and
honestly, mate, they're worthless. I couldn't
grade
believe how
through
little
them.
they were worth. You should just, I'll take them all off your hands. It's fine. Take
But that's how it is, and there'll be people out there who was pulling those cards and like you say, thought no value, pound, £2, whatever, and now
Yeah.
look at them. So hold on to your silvers and your refractors. Right, last topic. I want to squeeze it in because we're reaching the hour mark again. This was on last week and it was dropped off because we run out of time. So I want to squeeze it in now. EFL Panini license. I'm excited. I'm a big EFL guy. As you know, I watch a lot of Football League football. Give me the Football League over the Premier League any day right now. And the fact we are potentially going to see some products around the EFL, I cannot wait. Let's hope it's not just a sticker album. Fingers
I,
crossed.
I
But
think I saw somewhere they said hobby products. I think they said hobby products. Now I'm thinking if we've got the word hobby product, I'll cross my fingers for a Prizm. Like I will say this every single day of the week. The Championship is the best league in the world.
yeah,
Bar none, nothing comes close. It goes into the start of the season and you've got favourites, it means nothing. I'm sure Luton, who had just come down from the Premier League with hundreds of millions in parachute payments, were probably favourites or in the top 5 to rebound straight back up again, and bang, they've been dumped out. It's not predictable. The quality of the football isn't Premier League, but it's still of a great standard where I think they'd be competitive in other tournaments and other leagues. It's fantastic. And the idea that a lot of these fans are going to get to see stickers and cards of their teams they've never seen before in their life. I've got a couple of big mates, diehard Reading season ticket holders, haven't missed games in years, and still shows me the old shootout cards from when they were in the Premier League, of Leroy Lita and players like this, proper Barclays. But that's all they've ever had. We've got to go back to like 2008 what 2005, 2006 shootout cards to ever be able to collect the people they love watching every single week. And I hope it's all four leagues. I hope it's not just the championship. I, maybe, the Wrexham pool has had a say in it. I think it's possible. But I think everyone that's, criticized the Wrexham thing could probably thank them for this, because it's more money that's going to come in to the league, to the pyramid from another source. And I think it's just nothing but good. It's good for the teams, it's good for the clubs, it's good for the sponsors, it's good for the fans. It's just nothing but amazing news. And I am really excited, and I don't even support an EFL club.
Maybe we get a, like they do UCC Chrome. Maybe we'll get a EFL, the top sort of 6 teams from each of them, or something like that, where we see it all. There's so much scope for it. It's everything that Panini needed to do.
Yeah.
You've lost the license out on the ego stuff, but you've got an opportunity to go down serious collectors stuff now.
Yeah.
And I'm just so glad that they've just made what I feel was a proper positive move for the hobby. So many people that were isolated from collecting their teams. And let's be honest, I can't remember where the championship sits in terms of attendances. In fact, I'm going to have a quick look now. So let's have a look at top attendances for leagues in Europe. And I know the championship is in there somewhere pretty high. And yeah, it's just,
Thing is, you've got massive
there's
stadiums
so
that
many
are full every
fans
week,
there.
haven't you? There's massive stadiums that are full every single week.
Yeah, huge, absolutely huge. And yeah, it is just it's just so exciting. Where does the championship? Let's have a quick look. EFL Championship boasts 3rd biggest crowds in Europe.
There we go.
I mean, the Championship was the 3rd most watched league in European football. I mean, like, it's crazy. It is a absolute massive league with a huge following, and there are people there who are desperate to see cars. I mean, the one that stands out because they've just never made it to the Premier League is Millwall.
Yeah, of
Millwall
course.
fans will love having cards available, but there are such big clubs that go seasons and seasons without. Okay, again, there's a flip side that obviously this year, there's Ipswich fans were picking up as many cards as possible. I mean, the Ipswich market was crazy because everyone was just buying them up left, right, and centre, because they knew.
And it was Luton. Yeah, and it was
Luton
Luton the
fans
year
as well
before.
went crazy. Yeah, exactly that. So, it loses maybe that little bit of spark. But come on, you got EFL with a nice, whether it be a colour wheel or whether it be a. I don't imagine that they'll put the same inserts in as what they've ever used. I don't imagine there'll be like a Kaboom product for EFL or anything like that. But I imagine they'll come up with their own little case hits and so on. And yeah, just be exciting. I'm so looking forward to it.
Mate, I absolutely agree. And one of the things I like as well is I know there's quite a few footballers that collect themselves. I know they are in the hobby and stuff like that. And I think one of the nicest guys that I've met in the hobby that's also a player is Jacob Brown of Luton. I've spoken to him at many card shows and stuff like that, and he was always saying like he was buying it up his rainbow like crazy because it was the first time he could actually collect his own cards, because they got into the Premier League and he was able to jump on it and go, I need my cards. And I'd love to think now that there's other players that, again, it's got to be quite cool. I'm sure it's a very cool thing when these players get to finally see themselves on FIFA for the first time. And it's just another one of those things where it's a really nice thing. I want to see kids outside the stadium trying to get their cards signed as they get off the bus, so they can then go home and put it in their binder and it's been signed by their favorite players that they watch every week. I think it's just another awesome opportunity for another connection between the players and the fans, and get kids involved. And it's going to be something awesome for dads to do with their kids, because that's what they used to do back in. I love it. I'm so for it. I'm so excited for it. I just hope Panini nail it.
I had some of the best Declan Rice rookie cards. I had the gold standards number to 12. I had unbelievable Declan Rice cards, and I took them. I went to his house, showed him, and I felt like a little kid. And he looked at me like a little kid, and he almost laughed at me like a little kid, as if to say, "Why have you got card cards of me, and what are you doing bringing them to show me?" I felt I almost like, "You're a grown man, grow up, you absolute donut," is how he sort of took it. I was a bit embarrassed, I got to say, but I actually took them along to get them signed, but I was so embarrassed. At that point, the signing moment had gone. I thought, yeah, I'll put them back in my pocket.
Yeah, cheers, Mr. Rice. I'll see you later.
Sorry, Dex. See you later on, mate. Um, Mate, that sort of wraps it up for this
It
week.
does.
We've gone over the hour again. It just naturally happens. We get talking
Promise.
over an hour later, and we could still go on and on all night. So, looking forward to it. Like we said, anyone who wants us to discuss anything, any topics you want us to sort of, you know, dig the bones out of or give our opinion on, then do let us know in the comments below. And I guess we'll be back again very, very soon. We'll keep up this momentum best we can and keep the regular content coming. So thank you very much, and I'll see you all in episode 4.
Catch you in a bit.